60 minutes. Delivery on us.
K-Talk.
Call 021 446 0567.
On to much more serious matters, we continue our coverage of the 16 Days of Activism campaign with a conversation about domestic violence and specifically the red flags that might indicate a relationship is veering towards abusive, if it's not already there. With me on the line is Sidwell Sehoana, who represents an organization called ADAPT, that stands for Agisanang Domestic Abuse Prevention and Training, and they are partners in a global campaign called Abuse is Not Love. It aims to raise awareness of intimate partner violence and to highlight the behaviors which constitute abuse or which might be a warning sign that a relationship is becoming abusive. Sidwell, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Pippa Hudson. Thank you so much for having me, and, good day to your listeners.
We really appreciate your time. I mean, Sidwell, our murder stats are horrifying enough in South Africa, but one particular aspect that makes my stomach churn is that of all of the women who are killed in this country, more than 50% of those victims are killed by their intimate partner. Not in a robbery, not in a hijacking, not in a gang shooting. They are deliberately targeted by the person they should have been able to trust the most. Is that figure of more than 50%? Surely it must be one of the highest in the world?
It is. It's one of the highest. And honestly, it's just disturbing. When you start with statistics, and I'll be honest with you, this is the work that some of us do, but it always comes with those emotions. Right now, listening to you sharing those statistics, and the fact that some of us we sit and some of these family victims, they come to our offices, to speak to us around these particular cases. You can just imagine how, heartbroken they are and how sad children have been left without their mothers due to, in the hands of their partners. It's just appalling and disturbing to be realizing these number of people, being killed by their partners.
Yeah. Sidwell, the reason we're talking to you today, though, is to highlight the fact that it doesn't necessarily start with outright violence and that abuse doesn't necessarily always come with bruises and scars and obvious signs. Sometimes it's a very insidious process. Sometimes it starts all fine and hunky-dory and then gradually slides into ever increasingly abusive behavior that some people don't even realize is happening to them. And your organization really wants to highlight a couple of, I'm going to call them red flags, although I know that term is perhaps too easy to sort of push these behaviors away and excuse them as just, something other than what they are, which is the road towards abuse in many forms. Sidwell, before we go through that list of warning signs, maybe let's talk about the fact that not everybody even recognizes behaviors as abusive. Neither the person going through them or the person watching from the sidelines. Is that part of the problem, that so much has been normalized in South Africa that is abusive that we don't even recognize it as such anymore?
It is. No, you one of the things that I that issues with partners.
Oh dear, we seem to be struggling with the phone line of our guest. Apologies for that, Sidwell. I'm going to put you back to my producer and see if we can just get you to move around to a place with a bit of a better signal so that we can hear you clearly, because I think it's really important that we should be able to listen and take note of the behaviors that Sidwell's going to be chatting to us about. Just to recap, the guest is Sidwell Sehoana from Agisanang Domestic Abuse Prevention and Training, and talking to us about the fact that unfortunately we don't always recognize the signs of abusive traits, should we say, entering relationships, and that in fact a lot of the behavior that is a red flag of potential abuse is normalized to the degree that we don't see it as problematic. I hope we're going to be able to get Sidwell back on a clearer line. Let's try again. Sorry about that, Sidwell. We just lost your line. Are you there with us now? No, we seem to be having an issue. Can I suggest that we cut the call entirely and phone Sidwell back? No, we've got him back again. Let's try again. Sidwell, sorry about that. We were just saying before the break, abuse not always absolutely obvious, and there are behaviors which are unfortunately so prevalent and even so normalized in South Africa that they're not even recognized as abusive or as sort of steps towards abusive behavior. Would you like to elaborate a little bit?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think you are quite right. And you know, when you look at our National Strategic Plan, the NSP, one of the pillars that it's within the 6 pillars that we have, it speaks a lot around community education. You know, it literally says to us that we need to ensure that we raise awareness, we empower people around issues of, gender-based violence, so that it becomes easier for them to realize when they are in an abusive relationship. Because remember the cultural beliefs and how people have been raised in different spaces. That's where the issues of gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, they are being normalized. For a guy or for a man in a relationship to be in control, to dictate, to tell a woman what to do, when and how, it's something that it's been normalized within a number of communities. And you'd find even women who are in those relationships not reporting these cases because they don't think there's something wrong or they are being abused by those behaviors that are taking place. Even when people are being married in some of the cultural practices that have been practiced in our country, a woman has been told that when you are married, you're not supposed to say no to your husband when it comes to sexual intercourse. You're not supposed to question your husband whereabout of your husband. Whether he comes home, after 5 o'clock in the morning, you must just be happy that your husband came back. You must just be happy that this particular person chose you and married you and perhaps built you a home. Whether you are being abused or not, you must just stay in that particular marriage. That's how a number of women have been raised. And it's sad, that through that, there are a number of young people, there are girl child who are learning, just observing how their mothers have been treated, the fact that their mothers are quiet and not reporting or saying anything, and challenging all these gender stereotypes. It literally tells them that it's okay, you can also be in a relationship, you must behave as I've been behaving, because there's nothing wrong. Children, oftentimes when they grow up, they replicate the behaviors that they grew up being exposed to. And those are the things that makes this problem to be, so huge within our community. Hence, we would always come back and say, every 6 hours a woman has been killed in our country and killed by someone who's in a relationship with. That speaks about the power and control that has been given to, number of people. The fact that young girls are not being raised in an environment where they have been told that they must advocate for their own rights. They must say no. If they feel like I'm in a relationship with this particular person, but today I don't feel like engaging sexually with you, they should, without fear or favor, and freely so, they should articulate and say, today I don't feel like. And a guy must understand, mustn't even try to manipulate that particular girl. There's a project that we're implementing in partnership with YSL Beauty. And this is the project that we are focusing on addressing issues of intimate partner violence. And it's a project that's been presented or implemented, globally across 87 countries. And when we are addressing them, it's mainly to ensure that, we make people to be aware around the forms of abuse. We make people to be aware of the red flags. The red flags that you spoke about, we call them warning signs. And when we call them warning signs, we're saying, young people, be aware of these things that we regard them as warning signs. Being in a relationship where you are going to be manipulated, where one will manipulate you, will coerce you into doing or saying something you might not want to do, you need to be aware that those are the reflex. You are actually being, abused by those particular traits that you're experiencing from that particular person that you are in a relationship. Being in a relationship where you have been controlled, where you're aware about where you go, how you look. Someone must tell you that they don't like seeing you wearing that particular dress. They prefer seeing you wearing that trouser. You are being controlled. Someone is actually controlling you and telling you what to wear, where to go, and what to do, what time and when. And those are the warning signs that young people sometimes, they find this. I think one lady once said to us, we find it attractive. This is our love language. Oftentimes when a guy say these things, he shows that he's a real man. A man must be masculine, and they must, lead by being controlling. It literally tells you that These are young people who have been raised in a society where they've been exposed to all these controlling behaviors. They've normalized them. The only thing that they were exposed to is that it's okay to be in a relationship where a guy must have an upper hand, and you as a female, you must follow, because that's how their mothers, are behaving, and they've been behaving. Hence, I indicated earlier on that young people are replicating behaviors that they grew up in an environment being exposed to. And as we are saying, raising and trying to ensure that we raise a lot of awareness around these warning signs, would normally emphasize them and saying there are a number of women who have been killed in their relationship. When we are reflecting about the stats that we spoke about, the cases of Karabo Mukwena, to name few, those are women who experienced what we call the cycle of violence. The cycle of violence brings in these warning signs that we are highlighting. These are women who thought this particular person will change. These are women who thought, or their partners would feel remorseful and apologize. But they've always shown these characteristics of an abuse, that they've been always behaving abusive towards them. And if we don't break the cycle as members of the society, we are literally telling the cycle to break itself. And the cycle oftentimes it breaks itself when the femicide tend to be, introduced, where someone has been killed in that particular relationship, or when someone has been arrested in that particular relationship. And we shouldn't wait for these things to reach that point. We should be able to identify these warning signs as early as they are, as early in our relationships, and ensure that we always say, and we find it very important, we normally also say men who are perpetrators, and I always use the word men because most of the perpetrators within the subject of intimate partner violence is us as men. I always say if you possess certain characteristics, that you are realizing from these engagements that we are having, try to ensure that you go and you seek help. I think men need to be encouraged to go for counseling. Men need to be reminded that behaviors are learned and negative behaviors, they can be unlearned. We can unlearn these abusive behaviors because sometimes men are behaving the way they behave because the society taught them that you must be in control. A boy child has been raised in a society where he's been taught that for you to deal with conflict, you must bring in aggression into that particular conflict. That's why when a boy cries, they always say, you are not showing that you're a man. You can't cry because you have been beaten by someone. Go and fight your battle. They are literally encouraging young boys to go and be violent. Hence, when they are in a relationship, it's quicker and easier for them to deal with issues by being aggressive or using aggression in those relationships. Hence, we are saying, as men, the traumatic situations that we grew up being exposed to, it's very important for us to ensure that we normalize therapy, we go and unlearn these particular behaviors.
Sidwell, it's so important what you've just said, because as much as we can teach young women to be empowered and to reject this kind of behavior, and we had an example on the show yesterday, author Moshitari Letlomela speaking to exactly this issue of recognizing that it was culturally ingrained in her community and making the decision that she would walk away from that community because she was not prepared to keep on perpetuating that cycle. But to get that message through to the men as well is such a huge part of the challenge. Now, you've mentioned the manipulation. You've mentioned the issue of control over what you wear and where you go. I just want to mention a couple of the other big red flags that your program speaks to. It's constant humiliation and putting you down or talking down to you. It's blackmailing behavior, trying to coerce you into doing things that you have refused to do. It's intense jealousy. It's intrusive behavior like going through your phone constantly. Also, the one I wanted to mention before we must wrap up, Sidwell, cutting you off from friends and family. And this was one of our listeners is asking, what do you do if you recognize these red flags in your friend or loved one's partner and they're not seeing them themselves? One of the big problems is that one of the common abusive behaviors is to try and isolate and keep you away from friends and family who would recognize this behavior. So what would you advise someone to do who's in that position of seeing, I can see that the relationship my friend is in is abusive, but she doesn't see it herself?
You're absolutely right. When we facilitate this IPV training, in partnership with YSL Beauty, we have a section that we speak about that speaks about you don't have to be an expert for you to be a resource. We are literally saying if someone is experiencing these particular issues, and oftentimes maybe they are not aware, or they come to you and tell you that my boyfriend or my husband is being abusive towards me, would normally encourage people to help those particular people to discover their power. We normally say listen to your friend or listen to that particular individual without being judgmental to that particular person, and try to help that particular individual to discover their power. And how do you do that? You do that by asking them a question that says, based on the experience or the situation that you find yourself in, what is the best thing you can do for yourself, and what is it that you want me to do to assist you? You are literally saying, you are in this situation. Think about what is best that you can do for yourself. You are literally saying, become a critical thinker. Yes, you are experiencing these issues. I'm not going to judge you, and I'm not here to tell you what to do. Because one of the biggest mistakes that we do is that we normally tell survivors or victims what to do. We normally tell them that go open a case, leave this particular person, and then we become very surprised when that particular person open a case, and then at the later stage they withdraw those particular cases. Sometimes they behave like that because they were not ready to open those cases. So when you help someone to discover their power, you are literally working with this particular person to discover their power to a point that they reach a point where they take a decision that they know that this is a decision that they will benefit themselves. And then when they took in that decision, it's very unlikely for them to, withdraw those particular cases if that decision is for them to open a case. And oftentimes we normally say, let's give people options. Options such as go for counseling. There's an organization within this particular community that is assisting women who are experiencing these kind of issues. Go and visit them. There are social workers that are there who are going to be able to listen to you, because social workers, they are well informed and well capacitated to deal with these particular issues. Psychologists, they will be able to make one to realize that perhaps this is a problem, and also to go deeper to realize that where this particular problem might have come from. You might be a victim, you might be a perpetrator. I think it's very important for us to actually, reach a point where we normalize, speaking about emotions and confronting demons that were given to us.
We have to leave it there, but Sidwell Sehoana, thank you so much. We really appreciate your input this afternoon. Sidwell, part of an organization called Adapt, who are aligned to the Abuse Is Not Love campaign, which is a global campaign. You can check out the website abuseisnotlove.com. Follow the links through to the South African specific info if you're looking for further resources. A little late for the Eyewitness News. My apologies, and good afternoon to you, Wesley Peterson.
Thanks, Pippa. Good afternoon. More state